So I got into editing because I was doing my PhD, and although I had funding for my PhD, I was also a single parent and I needed more money. So I was working several different jobs. I was working like as a teacher, instructor in the university itself. I worked as a teacher at the local sixth form college for 16 to 18-year-old students teaching, and it still wasn't enough. I still needed another job. So I received an email one day that went around the whole department, asking if there was anybody interested in editing papers. And I had been doing some of this, like for my colleagues. I'd been helping colleagues like get their English correct and stuff when they were writing up their papers or their theses and whatever. So I thought I'd give it a go, and I seemed to do quite well. So that kind of got me into it, and I carried on throughout my PhD. Like, it was just a really nice source of income for me then, because all of my other jobs like were in the daytime and things, but then I could do the editing when I got home in the evening. So I could not quite work 24 hours a day, but pretty much at some times, yeah. But yeah, it got me paid for my PhD. That's how I got into it. So my background is in psychology. I did a psychology undergraduate degree, MSc and PhD at Exeter University in the UK, and worked as a lecturer and postdoc for several years afterwards before I became a full-time editor. I've been a full-time editor now for, I think, 12 years. I first started work for AsiaEdit, as it was at the time, in about 2001 when I was doing my PhD, and then worked for 2 or 3 years, continued my PhD, and when I'd finished, I went, I say, full-time academic work. And then in around 2010, I wanted to take a career break, and so I went back to editing while I traveled for a while, and found that I really enjoyed the lifestyle. It was like, I really enjoyed the flexibility. I worked from various different countries over the last few years, and it's given me loads of opportunities to I say, travel and work at the same time. I'm currently based in Italy, in Tuscany. We have an old mill that you can see behind me here, and yeah, that's my life at the moment. I think my background in academia was really helpful because it really gives me an insight into what our clients are going through when they're writing and submitting papers for publication. So I really understand the publication process. I understand how stressful it can be. I also understand what needs to be done, like the amount of work, but also the actual kind of like what a good paper looks like. And I think that really helps with the editing. So I kind of not just editing for English language, but also to make sure that the paper reads like an academic paper. So I think an academic background is really, really helpful in doing that. So my background has prepared me to be a manager at AsiaEdit because I did a lot of supervision while I was working in academia. So I supervised a lot of students, and I had people working under me. So I was kind of used to like mentoring and helping people in their different roles. So I think that's been really helpful to me. And also just my years of experience in editing, I think, has just helped me to understand like each step of the way from a novice editor to becoming an experienced editor. So I've been through it all, I've learned it all, and hopefully I can share my experiences to help other people when I'm managing them. In a typical day as head of training and development, I'm not so much involved in the day-to-day activities of editors and clients at the moment. So I do still like to keep on top of everything that's happening. So I always check what's like which editors are working at the moment, what kind of jobs they've been allocated. I look at all the kind of feedback to see how editors are doing, see if any interventions needed and things. And then I will tend to just work on the projects that I'm doing at any one time. So at the moment, I'm working on putting all of our resources test materials and everything onto a new learning management system. So I spend a lot of the day just revising our materials, bringing them up to date, making sure that everything has correct links in it and so on as I put it into the new system so that it's all ready to go in hopefully a few weeks' time, or maybe months. I also devise things like training quizzes and things. So we develop a lot of training materials to help editors. And then I develop quizzes to go with them to make sure that everybody is kind of taken on board all the materials that we try and get them to understand. What else do I do? Obviously, there's quite a few meetings. So we have like management meetings and so on, chats with other managing editors about issues that come up during the day. This is that kind of, yeah, a mixed work day like this. So the skills that I think are most important for editors who are going to edit work by people whose first language is not English is an ability to take a lot of information into like as you're reading. You need to be able to read a sentence or a paragraph and be able to take the ideas in your mind and try and kind of make sense of them so that you can disentangle the writing and put it back together in a way that's more clear and simpler to understand. Like so often authors write in very long sentences that are very difficult to disentangle. So you have to be able to pick out the component parts and separate them and then put them back together in a way that makes it much clearer than it was in the first place. So I think that's one of the most important skills. Obviously, we're looking for very good English grammar skill, like ability. Like it goes without saying that that's a kind of skill that's needed by an English editor. I think just lots and lots of practice of reading things that are written by English as second language speakers, because you kind of get used to your become more attuned. I think the more you work, the easier it becomes to disentangle these kind of difficult, complex sentences. And the different ways that different languages are constructed come across in the way people write. So, for instance, if you read a lot of papers by people whose first language is Chinese, for instance, then you begin to see how the structures of Chinese influence the way that they write in English. So over time, it becomes much, much easier to understand. During the pandemic, there was a huge change in people's working patterns. For us, like as editors, we had always worked remotely. So my job has always been remote. And I think that really helped me during the pandemic because it wasn't a sudden change. It meant that life carried on pretty much as normal. It was here in our house in Tuscany, and we had lots of freedom to just go outside and exercise and things. So it was actually quite a nice time for me during the pandemic in a way. I think for a lot of people, like the switch was much, much harder because like when you first start doing it, you become isolated. I think you start feeling a little cut off from your colleagues, and it takes time to work out ways to become sociable and to make sure that you're getting enough interaction with people. So we try, I think, at AsiaEdit to make a friendly environment where we can communicate with each other, and there's always somebody there to chat to if you need to be in contact with people. And we have regular meetings and things that I think helps people to feel more in touch with the company, so you're not completely isolated. But it can certainly take a bit of getting used to at first. And when you get used to it, I think you'd find it really hard to go back to working in an office full time, because the freedom of working from home, working from wherever you like, it's fantastic. You just can't beat it. So I think another really good advantage of working remotely is for people who are unable to work in a full-time office, so do a 9-to-5 kind of job. So anybody who can't for instance, find childcare to work full time, needs to work from home, or maybe has special kind of needs in terms of their working environment or whatever, working from home can be a really big advantage. You don't need to work set hours. So you can work maybe 3 hours a day if you want to. You can work 3 days a week if you want to. You can really just mix and match like your working days and your working hours, whatever fits or whatever suits your lifestyle best. So I think it opens up a really good career for people who might not otherwise be able to take on a job in a physical office. So I think that life as an editor can be it can get really it can get really dull. Like sometimes there are just days when you just feels like a paper's never going to end, and you really need to be able to get up and do something else. You need to take yourself out of your environment and do something fun. So for me, that means generally like I'll go out for a walk with the dog. Like we live in a beautiful place where there's plenty of walks available. That's my main activity during the day. And so if it's a particularly bad day of editing, then the dog gets a lot of walks. The other thing I do is like there's almost always a yoga mat here, like out on the floor, just because if I don't put it away, then it reminds me every time I look around to do some stretching, to do a bit of yoga, to do a bit of meditation maybe. And I think that really, really helps. Like that just helps to do something physical, but it also helps to just kind of to clear my mind and stuff when I'm kind of feeling a bit overwhelmed with things. I just really like to meditate. And I think that's really good for my health. I also enjoy like cooking and what else? I also go cycling and maybe a walk on the beach sometimes as well. So yeah, lots of different activities. I think it's really important to keep physically active because, as I say, like you're just sitting at your desk a lot otherwise, and I think that can be really unhealthy. So yeah, as many different ways to be physically active as possible to break up your day, I think is really good. So as I say, I have edited from many different places around the world. I think it's hard to choose the absolute favorite place. There's 3 places that come to mind. One is Sri Lanka, where I spent about 2.5 years, and I absolutely loved living in Sri Lanka. The internet situation at the time was not great, so it was a challenge, but really for editing, all you need to be able to do is download and upload papers. So it kind of worked. I don't think I would be able to manage with it nowadays, but at the time it was fantastic. We were just living by the beach. We'd work like from like 7 or 8 in the morning, finished by 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was just like being on holiday for the rest of the day. Loved it. And the other place was Thailand, and Chiang Mai is in particular, I think it's become a real kind of hub for remote workers, and we had a fantastic time there as well. And then finally Costa Rica, where we spent another year. And again, many challenges from internet and various other issues, but like just amazing to have these opportunities to work in different places and like still be doing my job every day, but yeah, like having so much fun at the same time. Thoroughly recommend it. My buddy is my dog, and she's a Hungarian Vizsla, and she is the Hungarian Vizslas are also called Velcro dogs because they literally stay by your side all day, all night, whatever you do, there is your dog beside you. So Freya, our dog, yeah, she's my buddy. She's always next to me. She sits on the sofa by my side. Sometimes she curls up on the bed with me if I'm snuggled up, keeping warm sometimes. But yeah, she keeps me company and she makes me smile. So she's just lovely to work beside.